Hello and good morning, everyone. Today is the second day of my educational video, and I am Muhammad al.Jumaili talking about international law. Every day, again, is a different subject, so today is what is international law, and this is the source I've been studying and using throughout my MBA. Very interesting textbook. The setup of it makes it so easy for student to understand the subject. It has a lot of cases and a lot of examples and exercises that makes the student really like what they do and like what they study. It's not like you studying in math where you just have to do a lot of equations. It's very simple. It's very easy to learn about international law. So what is international law? International law doesn't have a really one definition. There is so many different ways of explaining international law. International law is any group of people that gathers together from different nationalities and decided to set rules and agenda so they can make it easier for people who are doing business or dealing with any cases that's internationally. Mostly are used for trades and business, but also used for personal cases, like people try to get justice for themselves. There is three different types of international law. There is the state versus state. There is a between a state and a person, and between a person and a person. The state versus state is like a country versus a country, like the United States of America versus the Republic of Iran, or any other country. The states versus person is where a corporation or an organization or a group of people or a person versus that state. A person versus a person is a person where he file against a person in another country. So if I'm in the United States and I'm trying to file against someone in Iraq, I can do that, and that's called person versus person in the international law agenda. There was one study or case study that I liked in this book that is in the first chapter. The case really, how to say, like, it didn't really take a good attention, and the person who filed that lawsuit against the state of California didn't get his justice. At the same time, the state or the international law should be written differently. So this case has a lot of background and a lot of different fields that people should have looked at, but unfortunately they didn't. So the case is Mr. C. Fuji versus the state of California. Mr. Fuji, he's a Japanese nationality, tried to purchase a real estate in California, or actually he purchased a real estate in California in 1948, right after the Second World War. After he purchased that land, the state of California is saying, okay, you are not a U.S. citizen, so we can't give you the land. And he filed an appeal, and the Supreme Court of the United States in California took the case. This issue was violated by the law of the United Nations Charter in Article 1, 55, and 56. But they did not win the case because the United Nations did not write these words, or the language they used to write these laws were not accurate, and they did not apply in the United States. And that's why the case was closed in 1952. Long story short, I think when dealing with international and having many different like culturally different minded people from different cultures, different background, different social life, it's very hard to actually come up with set of laws and say, okay, yeah, this is what we all gonna be agreeing on, because I might have a different view of what people think in China or Japan or whatever. Um, so I want to go back to international law and explain more about what is international law and have a background about international. The first law that historian agrees on that was written by a human being is the Hammurabi law, and the Hammurabi Code was written in about 1750s BC, and some others they said no, according to the evidence and the studies and research, they found out there is a law that was written 300 years before Hammurabi law, and that law was written by King Or the Third. And Or the Third, he established the third generation of the kingdom of Or, and he wrote these in the country now known as Iraq, back then as Mesopotamia. But the first written international law, after I did my study, I found out it was written actually in the United States, and that law called the Liber Code, and it's written after the Civil War in 1860s. There's many different laws that people follow internationally. There is the common law, private law, civil law, Islamic Sharia law, and that's what I actually focused on when I did my study in my MBA. All these laws are written by a human, and as we all know or agree on, we all make mistakes, so nobody is perfect. But the Sharia law, many people say, okay, it's not written by any human being, it's actually a source from Allah, from God, whoever you want to call it. And a lot of people agree on that, because when you look at the Sharia law and the language that's used, it's used for many different people, and many people can understand it. But unfortunately, the scholars, or some bad scholars I should say, they're not really good scholars, they interpreted that law for their own agenda or for own benefits. And that's why terrorism comes in place, and especially after 9/11 and all that stuff. We're not gonna go into that. What I really wanted to get in before I end this video is the subject of the state responsibility. So who is responsible to take that case? Like, let's say if I have a case in the United States that's filed against a country outside the United States, who's responsible in taking that case? What jurisdiction does it fall under? And that's always a question, a tricky question, especially when I did the case on Blackwater. Some people say, this case should be taking place in Iraq because it happened in Iraq, and some others may disagree, say no, it should be taking place in Kuwait because the company was based in Kuwait, and others says no, it's funded in the United States, a U.S. corporation, it should be done here. Long story short, state responsibility is wherever the case is taking place at, and whoever agrees on. Like when I have an agreement with a client, I should have this place of like, where should I, if there, God forbid, there is a court or any case happens or lawsuit, where should that case be taking place at? And it's always to state that statement in any agreement, and many international or big corporations do that nowadays. That's basically it. That's for today, and hopefully we'll see you with a different subject in tomorrow's video. Thank you for watching. Please keep the feedback and comments and tell me what you think, and I will do my best to improve. Thank you so much, and stay healthy and strong on these crazy days.